And that's when I got a call from Cron TV, which is San Francisco local channel.
Okay.
And they said, where are you guys based? I said, Palo Alto. Okay, we'll be in your office in 30 minutes. So I ran to the gas station, bought a razor, got into the marketing closet, got into the marketing shirt, and went on TV. Yeah. And that is when it started paying dividends. And slowly, after we were on Wall Street Journal, we were on multiple podcasts, we made it to Today's Show. This was supposed to be a 30-second segment on Today's Show, ended up becoming a 2-minute 30-second with Tom Costello, who covers travel. So I've been at 11 companies. 9 of them had a successful exit in the form of M&A or IPO in the range of $200 million to $10.7 billion.
I think all founders listening would just jump and want to get you on board just because you seem like a lucky charm. The company you choose gets eventually acquired.
This is definitely an edge that marketeers have if you are technical. So the last decade CMO, I would say, is more about storytelling, brand building. The next generation CMOs are all about data analyzing. I also like to say, do not have data without a story, do not have story without data.
Hi Varun, welcome to the Be Fearless podcast. Today I have Varun Kohli with me, good friend, someone I go back almost 24 years, and someone who's had such fantastic pivotal roles in various companies, a celebrated CMO, pretty much 7 to 8 exits in companies that he's worked at. Varun, welcome on the show.
Same. Exactly the same feelings I have, and I love the word Be Fearless.
Thank you. So Varun, you and I go a really long way, right? 22, 23 years, all the way back, probably like 2000 for me, I guess.
Correct.
So, for viewers who are listening in, Varun used to be 1 year senior to me at IIT Guwahati.
Correct.
And I guess that's really where our paths ended up crossing.
Right.
And of course, since then, you've had a pretty amazing, crazy journey. You've done amazing things, been at pivotal roles at companies all the way to acquisition. Now, of course, CMO at Cequence Security, which is doing amazingly well. So I'm going to allow you to kind of just take us through that really long, winding, scenic journey of passing out of IIT, coming to the US, and how everything came out to be.
Right. So you're taking me way in the past at the risk of aging myself. So I'll try to skip the dates and years so that audience is a little confused about the age part. Came here almost 25 years ago. Graduated from IIT. Landed in California. So funny story is I leave Delhi. This is peak summer months. It's very hot, think 48 degrees centigrade, 110 plus Fahrenheit. And I take a long flight via Japan, land here in California, Riverside. Riverside, if you land, the temperature is exactly the same. And I'm like, what did just happen? I left the same temperatures, landed in the same temperature zone. The other funny thing about Riverside is it's like a donut hole. Everything around Riverside is great. There's nothing in Riverside except for the college that I went to. So graduated 2 fabulous years, great school, great technology that I got introduced to. Completed master's in computer science, which is something my wife makes fun of. 4 years bachelor's in computer science, 2 years master's in computer science. Wrote code for 1 year and switched to marketing, but we'll talk more about it a little later. Graduated from Riverside, and then I landed in Silicon Valley in 2005.
Okay.
So I've been here 20 years, did not live anywhere else longer than I've lived here. So this is pretty much home now. Joined a company, Ironport. This was email security.
Right.
This is 20 years ago. Silicon Valley was not quite Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as common as it is now that people are flying you in for interviews and whatnot. I was actually in the area, Google paid for the interview. So Google invited me to have an interview for an engineering position.
Okay.
Since I was coming here, I actually reached out to a few interesting startups. Ironport was one of them. So I said, I'm anyways in the area. You don't have to pay for my flights. I would like to stop by the day before. So I stopped by at Ironport's office the day before, had a series of interviews. Next day, when I'm about to go to Google, they actually called me and said, where are you heading? I said, I'm going to the Google interview. And they said, we would like to make you an offer. So that's when I did not. Life would have been completely different if I would have gone to Google. Yeah. But instead, I went to Ironport. Ironport was email security backed by Sabir Bhatia, actually, one of the Indian entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah.
two founders, great company, amazing company. And we fast forward a few months, almost a year, we got acquired by Cisco. So that was a $800 million acquisition.
Nice.
Great outcome of a company. Then left that to join CipherTrust. CipherTrust is another email security company, if you know of, and this is Zscaler CEO's earlier company, Jay Chaudhary's earlier company. Yeah. So again, I was writing code, and this is when I transitioned from engineering to marketing. So I'll save that for a little bit. We exited CipherTrust, got acquired by Secure Computing. This was 200 some million. Secure Computing was a public company. We got acquired by McAfee. McAfee got acquired by Intel. So you can see a pattern here. So Intel acquisition was 7.7 billion. They paid for McAfee. That's some 7 point something. Don't quote me.
Yeah.
And then I left to join ArcSight. ArcSight was the only company to go IPO in the Valley in 2009. Bad times to go IPO. We IPO'd at $9. Stock came down tumbling to $4. Then we turned it around and sold it to HP for $44 a piece. So that was $1.5 billion acquisition.
Crazy.
Excellent outcome. Then I left to join, after ArcSight and HP, another company backed by Google and Kleiner. And this was in the collaboration space, one of the only non-security gigs that I've done. And they're doing exceptionally well, sitting at 200 million ARR, pre-IPO company. I left that to join Skycure, that is enterprise mobile security company. Another interesting story that I'll have for you here is, how do you take a boring enterprise mobile security all the way to today's show, which is watched by 5 million people, 19 to 45-year-old moms? Like, what does it have? There's no similarity between the two, right? Yeah. So we'll save that for a later time. Skycure, we raised Series A, we raised Series B, took the company to 250 plus TV channels, defined a new category in the space, and then got acquired by Symantec, all within 5 years. So phenomenal ride, had a lot of fun building that company. This was an Israeli company, so I joined as employee one in the US, first marketing hire, first business hire. So phenomenal times, excellent team, excellent founders. Then spent 2 years at Symantec running global marketing, left that to run marketing at FeedSci. FeedSci is when cybersecurity fails and fraud happens, FeedSci comes in and detects and stops that fraud. Okay. So I ran global marketing for that company, the only unicorn out of Portuguese, doing exceptionally well pre-IPO as well. And then I joined Cequence 3 years ago. So in a nutshell, very long answer. Sorry for that.
No, it's good. It's good. Like people get more flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been at 11 companies. 9 of them had a successful exit in the form of M&A or IPO in the range of $200 million to $10.7 billion.
I think all founders listening would just jump and want to get you on board just because you seem like a lucky charm. The company you choose gets eventually acquired.
Yeah, I don't know if it is the company or me. I can't say why. But I have been very fortunate and very lucky.
Yeah, no, amazing journey. I think very few people honestly can rival exactly what you mentioned, right? So I'll ask you kind of a follow-up question in there. How did you go about choosing which companies to join, right? Because the Bay Area is like full of so many companies, and in each one of them competing, with the other for, top talent, great folks like yourself. So what is your filter and sieve to decide?
Yeah, I look at 4 things. So when I'm choosing a company, the 4 things I look at, number 1 is people. Yeah. I'll be spending more time with these people than my 2 kids, 9-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. So I better like them, have fun along. What have they done in the past? Someone like you who knows exactly how to build a company. You've done it once, you're doing it again. So people is number 1 thing that I look at. The second thing I look at is investors. I'm betting my career on it. They are betting real dollars on it. So who are the investors? Is it tier 1s, tier 2s, Sequoias of the world, Greylocks of the world or not? The third thing I look at is market size. I don't want to own 80% of a grape. I would rather own 40% of a watermelon. So the market size has to be huge. Example, Cequence. We are betting on API security, and APIs are used every single time you're ordering food, your smartwatches, anything that you wear, anything that you're eating or ordering, any time you're walking into a store, swiping your card at a POS system or doing online shopping, they're all resting on APIs. Right. Today and the future, if you talk about LLMs, that's all resting on APIs as well. Right. So that's the third thing that I look at, market size. The last thing I look at is product. So you can be an exceptional marketeer. If the product sucks, you can only go so far.
Right.
So if the product is great, you can take it to endless places. So those are the 4 things I look at.
Amazing. And now kind of double clicking on this entire transition from tech to marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that happen? Yeah.
It's an interesting story. So as I said, my wife makes fun of that. So going back, I was in CipherTrust. CipherTrust was a Georgia-based company. They had acquired an instant messaging security company here.
Okay.
So again, at the risk of dating myself, I'm talking about IM security when you used to have AOL instant messaging, Yahoo Messenger, all those things, right? And they had acquired a company. This was email security, but they wanted to secure the instant messaging as well. As part of the acquisition, most of the folks left. Okay. So I was writing code, but at the same time was also presenting it to prospects. Okay. So luckily for me, 9 out of 10 presentations I made, they bought the solution. Okay. So that is when the CMO came to me and said, why don't you do product marketing? And I said, how do you spell it? I have no idea what you're talking about. So that is when I said, I'm going to do both. I'll write code for 6 months and I'll do product marketing. And this was 20 plus years ago. Yeah. I still write code and I still do product marketing and all of marketing. So that's how I transitioned from engineering into marketing.
And do you feel like, you having a technical background is an unfair advantage, especially, when you're kind of, let's say, looking at very deep technical companies, deep technical technology? Because a lot of times what I find is, marketers struggle to understand the nuances. And then many a times I've kind of found the messaging to be very high level or very shallow, but it starts to almost, feel like a very diffused messaging, right? And not something which is very laser focused, crystal clear.
Yeah, unfair or not, if you ask me, I don't think it's unfair. It's a fair advantage I would have. Is it important? It is very important. If you understand the gory details of technology and then you're able to translate it into benefits, you actually sound credible in front of sales instead of saying, oh, let me get back to you after I speak with my SE. If you're able to understand the problem and then go, this is how we do it, in front of analysts, this is definitely an edge that marketeers have if you are technical. So the last decade CMO, I would say, is more about storytelling, brand building. The next generation CMOs are all about data analyzing. I also like to say, do not have data without a story. Do not have story without data. Okay. In order to look at data, and this is how we ended up on today's show. So if I bring that example up again, we are an enterprise mobile security company. Anyone who's downloading an app or connecting to Wi-Fi networks, we would tell them, this is suspicious, this is malicious, this is safe. We took all the data we had, and this is back in the days, Travel and Leisure magazine came up with top 50 tourist destinations. Okay. And we superimposed that data with how malicious are those destinations. Oh, how likely are you to get attacked, join a bad Wi-Fi network if you land in Times Square versus San Francisco Golden Gate. Okay. And that took us to places. Funny, I thought this is brilliant and we'll be all over the place. We released the report. Nothing happens. Crickets. Yeah. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. And I started growing stubs and super depressed, walk into my office. And that's when I got a call from Cron TV, which is San Francisco local channel. Okay. And they said, where are you guys based? I said, Palo Alto. Okay, we'll be in your office in 30 minutes. So I ran to the gas station, bought a razor, got into the marketing closet, got into the marketing shirt and went on TV. Yeah. And that is when it started paying dividends. And slowly, after we were on Wall Street Journal, we were on multiple podcasts, we made it to Today's Show. This was supposed to be a 30-second segment on Today's Show, ended up becoming a 2-minute 30-second with Tom Costello, who covers travel. And the only cost that we spent, the only money we spent on it was $200 of my flight from here to LA. Yeah, that's crazy. All. And that was brilliant. I actually got a call from Israel, the only few times I used to get a call at 5 a.m. in the morning. And they said, what did you do? We cannot keep up with the traffic. There are a ton of people downloading the app. And I said, it was 7:37 a.m. East Coast. I said, throw more servers an hour later. So this is human load balancing we did. Every time it was airing in each coast, we were getting more number of downloads. We got more number of app downloads in 4 hours than 2 times the year before that.
Wow. Amazing.
And that was amazing. So this is, again, the importance of storytelling, analyzing data. How do you look at data in a different way? You might be selling to one buyer, but how do you make it relevant to 8 billion people on the planet? That's what the math is.
Okay, fantastic. And which brings me to the next question, right? I mean, at this point in time, so many deep tech companies, and let's just focus cybersecurity, right? Because, I mean, both of us have been in that space for a while. How do you kind of advise companies and, folks to approach B2B marketing in cybersecurity where, I mean, as you know, there's so many vendors out there, everybody's starting to hit the CISOs, CIOs within companies and all of that. So in your mind, like, what is that blueprint, let's say, for early stage companies that you would kind of recommend?
Yeah. I think if you talk about cyber, there are probably more than 5,000 companies in the cyber world. Out of that, 2,000 would be within 10 miles of Tel Aviv. So many cyber companies out there. When you're trying to approach your buyer, what you have to do is you have to think of it as the buyer.
Okay.
So you have to understand what all do they have, what all do they not have, how does this technology plug the gap, provides value. Always market onto others the way you would want marketed onto you. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
The other thing is completely understand your buyer persona, the ICP, as they say, ideal customer profile. Don't just stop at the firmographic, also go to the buyer persona level.
Okay.
What are the titles? What are the pain points? What is it that they do? What is it that they like to read about? Is it the events that they're going to? Is this analyst report that is relevant to them? Do they do a lot of searching online? Do I need to show PPC ads or not?
Yeah.
All of that depends on who you're selling to. What is the value that you're providing? What is it that they already have? What is the gap that you're trying to fill? So this is how, if you try to nail one after the other, you'll actually have a place in their environment.
Fantastic. And just to kind of like double click on that, you have online mediums to market to people, and you also have, real world events like conferences and all of that. Do you think there's some kind of a shift happening where it's more online and not as much real world events, or is it still the same, maybe the last like 10 years, and how that has kind of evolved in your mind?
Yeah, I think COVID played a pivotal role in this. So pre-COVID, conferences became super big. It went from 2,000 attendees to 20,000 to 40,000. The cyber conferences I'm talking about. At peak, they were at 55,000 attendees.
Wow.
COVID happened. That 55,000 dropped to 55 and they've been canceled. So this is what changed the behavior. Everyone started talking about online events, experience events, wine tasting, beer tasting, whatnot. And now slowly the world, we as humans, one thing we do well is we are very good at forgetting things. Yeah. So I have a neurosurgeon friend who says the number one functionality of our brain is to forget things. Otherwise, if we keep all the crap that we have in our brains, we'll go crazy. So within 3 days, doesn't matter how important, how big of an event happened, you'll forget about it. You can actually literally smile within 3 days of something big happening to you. Yeah. So similarly, we forgot about COVID as humans. We started going back to conferences. So it is not at the peak where it was. It is slowly coming back. Number one, it is not the same conferences, the large ones, because now they're more of a vendor reunion.
Right.
You have more vendors and people trying to sell than people trying to buy. So the people trying to buy have tried to flog into more smaller events, more experience events, where they can actually find value as compared to just walking the booth and walking the aisles. So I think there is a shift. It is not quite at the peak. Different kind of events, a combination of online and offline events. And one thing that I like to highlight for the marketeers, keep on doing experimentation, keep on measuring the ROI. And the way I like to measure ROI, I like calling it a golden ratio. So every dollar that you're putting in, how many dollars are returned in pipe? Let's say you're enterprise and you close 1 in 5 deals that you get. Yeah. If you put in $1 in marketing, I give you $5 back in pipe, you close 1 out of 5, it's a wipe. You put in $1, you made $1, but you would have spent in other places, so it's a wipe. If I give you $7 back in pipe, it's decent. If I give you $10 back in pipe, it's great. It's a profitable business. Marketing becomes a profitable thing as compared to a cost center. Always experiment. Is it online event? Is it offline event? What is the golden ratio you're trying to get? Sign up for events that are supposed to produce more golden ratio, like more than 7 or more than 10, and constantly replace the things that are not performing, the bottom feeders, and with the ones that are performing, the top feeders. So that's how I like to think about marketing. It's no one single answer, like always do big events. Some people, there was a funny story, Gartner Security Summit, and I see a huge booth, one of the biggest booths, and founder was a friend, someone I knew. And I was like, what are you doing? Did you not just come out of stealth last week? He's like, I did. And he said, if I get one deal out of this, it's going to pay for the whole thing. Okay. Not the methodology that I'll subscribe to, but some people think like that. You get one deal and it pays for everything. Let's not do that. Let's not make it just the art form. You actually make it very scientific. Measure the data, measure the ROI, and then sign up for things.
And which brings me to an interesting follow-up question. So let's say you set up a booth somewhere. Ideally, do you go about reaching people before the conference and starting to invite them, or just do you kind of play right there, where just waiting for people to kind of show up, and is there like a strategy there to make conferences a success?
I think it's a hidden secret. Shouldn't even be a secret, but it is. If you are taking that spray and pray approach, like show up at a conference and people will just flock to your booth because you have a giveaway, that's not going to happen. Okay. When you sign up, understand who's attending. Generally, every event will have an app. So sign up in the app. Identify who all is coming, identify your ICPs, reach out to them before. Even if it is 15 minutes conversation, I'll see you by the water cooler at 12 p.m. It's okay. You don't have to identify exact location. I'll see you on the left-hand side of the elevator at this time. So make sure all your people who are attending the conference are busy and they have 10, 20, 30 meetings before they show up. Not all the meetings will happen. You'll have a huge drop-off. 48% will probably happen. But still, do not just show up without any meetings. That's the easiest way to lose your money.
And you mentioned, right, like most people coming to these conferences, 2 to 3 days, they'll probably forget about anything.
Correct.
So at the end of that 15, 20-minute meeting, typically, what do you leave behind? How do you make sure that, they still remember you, or they're open to responding to an email which you end up sending a few days later?
Right.
Is there any interesting secrets in there that you've kind of honed over the years?
What we do is, what my team generally does is slightly different approach, because there are two different conflicting approaches. One, send them an email right now. The other one is let them get back to the office, let them get settled in, and then send an email. Sending an email right now, they're out of office, you'll get an out of office, they might never get to that email. Sending an email a week later, they would have gotten 20 other emails and they have just returned back, they might never get to it. What we do instead is, when you've had a meeting, if there is interest, pull up the calendar right then and there. Put a placeholder there. Let's meet 10 days from now. Here is what I'm putting in. Does this time work for you? If it doesn't work for you, we'll move it later. But do it then. Makes sense. Compared to when they've already forgotten about you, because they were out of office, email, work, everything is all piled up now. They do remember the cool giveaway, but they actually do not remember anything about your company.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And that way, in a way, you're also kind of gauging seriousness.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because, end of the day, when you're a startup, you just don't have time to kind of keep talking to hundreds of folks. So if he's unwilling to probably put something on his calendar then and there, also means, he's just playing along and probably isn't serious anyway. Now, from here, I'll segue to, of course, the most cliche question I guess everybody throws at podcasts, which is AI.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
AI is of course starting to change a lot of things, and people talk about automated AI BDRs, marketing, and all of that stuff. How do you view AI right now when it comes to B2B marketing? Let's say, we'll still keep it focused to cybersecurity or broader, if you feel that kind of makes sense. And, what are your thoughts? How do you go about using it with your team? And what do you think is the future?
AI is here to stay. So there are very few times when you actually have a platform shift, like they talk about it. It is happening right now. So in our generation, we did see a few of the platform shifts. We saw data centers going to cloud. We saw birth of an iPhone. So those were all platform shifts. Virtual servers happened during our times. Similarly, AI is here to stay, and this is a fundamental change on how people will interact. So I'm gung-ho about it. So that's what I've been telling my team for months. get on ChatGPT, get on Claude, get on different things and use it to your advantage, because it's not that AI will take your job and replace you. It will definitely replace the ones who are not using AI. So that's what I like to say. So use AI to your advantage. There are a ton of places where you can use it. Writing is definitely one of them. Content creation is definitely one of them. What used to take months to write blogs is done in minutes now. Just start talking, start chatting, change a few things, and it's ready for you. The other part that is also important coming from the cyber world, it is also using AI against AI. Right. So everyone has access to AI. Bad guys also have access to AI. How do you defend against those attacks? So 3 things that we talk about is, one is how do you use AI for cyber? The second thing is how do you prevent AI that you're creating? So your large action models, large language models, how do you protect that? And then third is someone who's using these action models, how do you defend against it? I'll give you an example. If I want to make a reservation using OpenTable at 5:30 p.m. for dinner today in Santa Clara, how do you stop from reserving all the restaurants in Santa Clara at 5:30 p.m. Someone can maliciously use this. Right. And like I was telling you earlier, offline as well, AI is resting on APIs. So this, and even day before, I think OpenAI released something. I have not read through it, Swarm, I think. So they're saying we'll look at the question, the prompt, we'll translate it, and then we'll convert that into API calls. So that becomes a very interesting problem. But coming back to the question, AI is here to stay, super gung-ho about it. At the same time, slightly paranoid about it as well. So use it to our advantage. There needs to be a lot of regulation, because in other places, we actually test a lot before we release a product, talk about appliances, talk about SaaS. We test a lot. In case of AI, we release it and then we test. So everyone has access to AI. And this is also where I actually think just day before I was thinking about it. It's kind of unfair that certain things are launched here in the US. You can use those things, but when you try to use it in Europe or in India or in other places, you don't have access to it.
Correct.
So is that fair? Like some people have access to all this technology and they have an unfair advantage,
right, but
others don't. So I think there needs to be some regulation and some control on this.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. Shifting gears to what you've been doing at Cequence Security. Cequence Security, of course, you could probably give your elevator pitch about what Cequence does, but the follow-up question from there on is, what big changes are you seeing in API security itself, especially in an AI generation at this point?
Yeah. So like I was saying, AI is resting on APIs. So that's a big change, but that is futuristic. If you talk about current world, we recently closed one of the largest companies on the planet, if you think about it. And the basic question that companies are struggling with is, how many APIs do you have?
Yeah. Okay.
When we asked this question to them, they said, picked up WhatsApp, left a few WhatsApp audio messages. How many APIs do we have? 4 hours later, they got the answer as 41.
Okay.
That's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. An average company with 1,000 employees will have 20,000 APIs, some kind of footprint of APIs. So 43 is absolutely far from real. So that's number one question we help companies answer. Number two is, what is the risk that these APIs pose? Number three, what attacks are going on at these APIs today that you need to stop natively in real time without relying on a third party? And those are the 3 things we do. And we do it for top 2 out of 3 telcos in the United States, 8 global telcos, largest mining company, largest ETF fund trading company, largest credit union in the country, largest independent credit card. So those are the 3 questions. Yeah. And the attacks that are happening on APIs or applications, one thing we haven't talked about is we used to have bots, but now there are AI bots as well.
Right.
So if you have someone coming to your website and what used to be it still is robots.txt, like go crawl this, don't go crawl this. AI bots don't listen to robots.txt. So AI bots will go and crawl everything. And this is a war right now that we are in the middle of. So how do you actually detect the AI bot activity as well and stop it? So that's another interesting thing that we're doing at Cequence.
And do you feel like technology is going to get so complex, including, of course, security remediation, that at some point security teams or very few people on a security team can even understand the complexity of the attack going on? And that's where literally, both on the defender side, when it comes to report writing and all of that, AI is going to take over. Because, I keep thinking about this problem all the time is you need to know so much now to be able to look at a good quality attack from an adversary to be able to understand what really happened. Right. So the complexity of attacks is going up, and which means the amount of knowledge that an individual on a security team needs to have to decipher that and figure out things like auto remediation is also very, very high. And not all teams are going to have someone like that or even a good collection of those folks.
100% agree. And I think there are two kinds of attacks when it comes to cybersecurity. One is run-of-the-mill attacks. In those cases, something mean to say is you don't need to outrun the bear, you need to outrun your friend. So they're going after the lowest hanging fruit. They will go attack the organizations. And if you're not doing something fundamentally wrong, you'll be fine. There are many companies who still have root and password as their password. So you'll always have those cases. The other ones are the extreme hard ones, hard to detect ones. And these are state funded. So you have to assume that the hacker will succeed. So if you have your blinders on and think, I'm doing a great job and there's no way I can get hacked, think again. You will get hacked. So there are only two kinds of companies on the planet. One, who have been hacked, and the others who don't know about it, right? So it's going to happen to you. And to your point, use AI, use expertise to detect those low and slow attacks. And it's not easy. And don't be fooled by, I'll be able to detect 100% of them. There's no 100% cybersecurity. If a vendor is trying to sell you 100% cybersecurity, run away. It's snake oil.
Absolutely makes sense. And just to touch upon, some of the macro trends in the cybersecurity industry today, I think, companies like Palo Alto and all have been pushing towards the platformization of products, right? Which is, there's so many vendors, security vendors, that large companies, of course, find it very painful to have to manage each of these products individually.
Correct.
And that's really where giants like, Palo Alto, Zscaler, whom not, they have a fundamental advantage there. And that is when the debate about like, should you buy best-in-class product? Or should you end up buying a platform which gives you access to many products so that you don't have to go through the painful, kind of process of managing? And at the very same time, the big question is, if platformization is the right approach, then would point product companies, which pretty much means all startups, would they have the right to become large, become big, or would everybody at some point just have to sell to, one of these big giants who have massive distribution?
Yeah, I think the fundamental question that I like asking before the what and how is why. Why are you trying to get this product or solution? If there is a pain point that you have that none of the platform companies can solve, there will always be place for these startups. And like I was saying, every time a new platform shift happens, a new technology, a new shift happens, security goes hand in hand. So security, to me, I was fortunate to choose cybersecurity as a career 15, 20 years ago, because that's like insurance. It was there 100 years ago. It will be there 100 years from now. So every time new things come, mobile comes, mobile security becomes a thing. Cloud comes, cloud security becomes a thing. AI comes, AI security becomes a thing. So for platform companies to be on top of those latest things and come up with products very relatively quickly is probably not going to happen. So this is where there is space for startups to go innovate, go find new problems to solve. But if your question that you're trying to solve is compliance, you want to get an audit,
makes sense.
Then platform is probably the right answer. If you can replace 20 different technologies with one technology, one vendor to call, one throat to choke, that's absolutely the right way to go about it. So it depends on why are you doing it before you go about what or how.
Well, I think absolutely makes sense. And that's really where, like my 2 cents on, of course, this is that, till the time, to your point, startups are focusing on very disruptive fields, things that large companies traditionally may find it very difficult to build because, of course, a typical startup is against like a product manager of a very large company. Right? And product managers have very different incentivization when it comes to taking up something super challenging or super disruptive to build. Including having to build a motivated team which can match up, to an early stage startup, right? Now, which kind of shifts to another interesting question I have is, at this point, are there any interesting macro trends apart from what we've discussed that you see in cybersecurity, which kind of, keeps you awake at night, or which kind of keeps coming up in discussions you have with like other leaders in the market? So
I think one thing was AI security that we touched on. So AI is here, so AI security becomes a thing. What is AI security? Prompt injection attacks is AI security. Stealing of models is AI security. People trying to fool your AI model to get refunds because there's no human in the picture, is AI security. So it's a huge, massive thing. If you think of the tip of the iceberg, the bottom is huge and no one has figured out how deep and how broad that is. Yeah. So that is one thing. Second thing, I think, I don't know why, but we can never go beyond email security. Every time we think we have figured it out, it is anti-spam, anti-phishing, it just comes up with a new flavor of it. The basic way to think about it, what I think is we as employees, as humans, what do we do when we walk into the office, right? Emails, we do check. The other thing which what we do is, where I think you guys come into picture, is browser.
Yeah.
The one of the very first things we touch on our computer is open the browser. Yeah. So my question back to you would be, what is it that's missing here? We have had so many flavors of browser security in the past. Why is this still a space?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. And actually, Varun, just to take a step back, if you look at it right now, the web browser is used pretty much in organizations by every single employee, and they spend almost 90% of all their time on browsers, right? And the big reason for that is almost all enterprise applications are now SaaS applications, which means you can only go via the browser.
Correct.
People still continue to use applications like Outlook, but that's starting to go down, especially, as more and more younger folks start to enter the workforce. They are like a web first generation, for what it's worth, right? I barely see my children ever use anything else apart from an iPad. Like, I can't even imagine working on an iPad full time, but they somehow managed to do it. And actually where, when we looked at this space, the key thesis was endpoint security solutions, XDRs at this point in time, look at file and process, but have zero visibility into the browser. So I'll give you a simple standard attack. Attackers know that the best people to target are salespeople, right? Because all of them are so eager to respond to anything that they get inbound. And adversaries will contact multiple salespeople in an organization, primarily using a trusted platform like LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn has become the place to farm leads now. And send them a message saying, hey, we would love to probably get a quote from your company. We've heard about your company. Here is a link or here is a document which you can kind of just open up, fill up and send back to us. Now, what most people don't know is platforms like LinkedIn absolutely do zero document scanning, zero link scanning.
Wow.
And you brought up a good point about, email phishing and things like that. What most of the existing scanners look at is the domain a new one? Is this a domain which was just flipped? Because attackers would set up new domains or buy, old ones. Attackers have completely changed their MO now, where anyone, including attackers, now can go and set up a tenant on office.com or sharepoint.com. So now what happens is all the code that they're hosting is on trusted domains.
Wow.
And the moment that ends up happening, your typical email scanners fail.
Correct.
SASE, SSE, secure web gateways also, kind of apply all their controls on a URL construct basis.
Right.
Which means, of course, you're going to be whitelisting sharepoint.com, office.com, github.com.
Right.
So attackers have started to string together these trusted websites to eventually conduct spear phishing attacks and whatnot. I'll give you one other interesting example. With AI going on, anytime that OpenAI comes up with a new release, attackers literally go and say, install this Chrome browser extension and we can give you premium access to the latest one. Wow. And everyone wants to save money. People just go and install. Now, almost all organizations have zero visibility into what extensions people are installing because people don't have managed browsers. Very few companies do.
Right.
So we looked at all of this and we basically said, people are spending all their time in the web browser. And now there are attacks which live and die entirely in the browser. So credential stealers back in the day had to be downloaded and installed. And then they would start to, monitor your keystrokes and probably send passwords back. But now if you installed a browser extension from a malicious website, that can automatically just go ahead, take your credentials and send it out. EDR doesn't even know something happened.
Of course.
There's no local code execution, right? And when it comes to a SASE, SSE secure web gateway, they are looking at network traffic to infer application layer attacks. So they don't have any idea what is the data being sent. Was this an extension data? Was this a clipboard copy? Or was this real legitimate data or just session data? So that's really where we realized that this can't be solved in the cloud. This definitely can't be solved by EDRs just by looking at process memory. What you really require is a browser native security product, a browser native first class citizen security product, which resides in a browser.
Correct.
And of course, approach a lot of people have tried to take is, should we just ship our own browser to you? never works. Extremely painful change management. Almost all of us love having multiple browsers, right?
Course.
I mean, I use Safari for social media, Firefox for my transactions, and Chrome for everything else. And that's where we said, let's take a browser extension approach. Browser extensions have superpowers. They are one layer above websites, so we can monitor, we can look at what's happening, and then we can pretty much run our algorithms right there, using WebAssembly and a lot of modern technologies that all browsers support. And that was the key pivotal point for us to go about saying, hey, you know what? Browser no longer has to be a blind spot.
Right. No, I think 100% agree. Every time you ask humans or employees to take an unnatural approach, they wouldn't.
Right.
So if you try to give them something new, like use this in this use case, use this in some other use case. And firsthand, we ran into that at Cybersecurity, the mobile security company, right?
Yeah.
They used to say, oh, use this device for your personal BYOD thing, use this device for corporate. How long did that last? Not very long.
Exactly.
So every time you ask a human, sometimes we are about to go order a Starbucks latte and we're in line for 17 seconds. Do I decide which device and then I go into an EMM controlled environment and then do it? Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think keep it very natural to the human behavior, which is what I think SquareX is doing. So kudos to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you brought up a great point. The most difficult thing to change is user behavior.
Right.
And that is also the greatest friction that you will have when you try to deploy any new technology.
100%.
Because you can always get the IT security team excited about new tech.
Yeah.
But the moment it starts deploying, that's when people are like, why this change?
Correct.
And then it becomes very difficult to answer because, look, security's only ROI is you're safe. It's an insurance policy.
Correct.
Security by itself, very difficult to say this is giving us new business, right? Of course, I mean, your customers will trust you more and whatnot. And I know that playbook. But for the most part, internally, there's so much friction. So you cannot mess with user behavior.
Agree.
That is the most difficult thing to go up against.
And I think the users have also changed. This is what used to be Gen X, Y, now Gen Z. Their expectations are very different. Their patience is very different.
Correct.
And I'm talking about my kids, right? And this happened when my older one was much younger. And she's reading a magazine and flipping through the physical magazine, flipping through pages. She couldn't see something properly and she started doing this on the physical paper. Crazy. That's their expectation. They're like, why is that not happening? So I think till the time when you're thinking about creating security solutions, think of the younger audience. How do they interact with it? I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely. I mean, you brought up a great point. I mean, again, we don't want to date ourselves and tell. I'm sure folks can guess what age group we are at. But I think, exactly to what you said, every 10 years, there's a fundamental shift in how, information gets consumed by the newer generation.
Yeah.
And eventually, everything starts to pivot around that, right? I mean, I could never have imagined a time when people would be watching videos on TikTok for 10 seconds and feel that was entertainment enough, right? While I guess we were a generation who ended up watching like a YouTube video for 30, 40 minutes and only then feeling a sense of satisfaction that you got something out of, that entire experience.
Yeah.
And crazy enough, when I forced myself to go through Instagram and TikTok for a few days, and then I myself felt like, okay, you know what, for what it's worth, if I'm on the go and just want to take my mind off and watch something absolutely brain dead stupid, just to reset, my own brain, well, this is an interesting, engaging medium for what it's worth.
Agree. And I think gone are the days for 30, 40 minutes YouTube. Speaking of the webinars, no one's going to sit through an hour-long webinar.
Correct.
You do it, you record it, great, put it out there, and then people will start chatting.
Yeah.
What was the TLDR of this webinar? How is this relevant to me?
Yeah.
What is the vertical use case that was discussed? So there's more communication. I think fast forward, there might not be websites. Who knows? You go www.com and then you start chatting. And they already know who you are. They already know what your pain points are, use cases are. And it starts changing behavior based on that. It's very interesting times that we are in. And one thing I'm happy about, that I'm on the tail end of my career. I don't have to climb the hill now, I think, is how I think about it.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. So which brings me, kind of to the next question. What are your predictions, when it comes to B2B marketing, sales and all of that, given how there's been a massive generational shift in things, in how we consume information, how we like to, get talked to, and all of that?
Yeah, I think the future of marketing is going to get impacted a lot by AI. It is not just what we're doing today is creating content, blogs, pushing it out. Great. But the future is you talk about you're writing this blog so that crawlers can crawl, start ranking you for SEO. who knows if SEO will be there tomorrow? So when you're buying a technology, think about SEO today and think about SEO tomorrow. There might be more audio tomorrow. I might just talk to someone instead of looking at the page and then clicking on an ad. What's the future of PPC? Might not be there tomorrow. You ask ChatGPT a question, it answers you exactly what you're looking for, and there are no ads there. So how does that work in that world? And then the training part of it, if you ask ChatGPT, for example, what are the top browser security companies, whether it picks you or not depends on where else is it reading from, the whole AI bots that I talked about earlier. So it is very interesting. My advice to the young marketeers are stop living in the present and in the past, think future. You're buying an SEO technology. How does that impact future? How does AI impact that? You're about to go write or buy a content kind of a tool. How does that impact? How does that get impacted by AI? Every time I'm looking at a vendor, my question to them is, how does this get impacted by Gen AI? Is this relevant tomorrow or not? So that's one litmus test, if you may. When you're getting into a tool, think about future. Don't live in the past or present.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And Varun, just to finally close things out, I think this is an amazing conversation. Any kind of like final interesting words, for marketers or for cybersecurity, kind of like in general, anything you want to kind of have the audience, kind of think about as interesting things that you've thought about? Yeah.
I think one thing that is common is human part of it. As I was saying earlier as well, we forget about things and we move on, but the person on the other side that is making this purchase is also a human. So we try to make a purchase and then justify it. So what you need to do is understand the human on the other side, understand the pain point, understand the way they purchase. We don't buy a $7 shampoo bottle without looking at reviews. Why would I buy a $700,000 enterprise product without looking at reviews? So think of the trust factor. People buy from people that they trust. Don't try to make a very quick win and move on to the next one and who would know about it. Don't cut corners. Don't think of your buyer as stupid. What would they know? How would they find out? Don't do that. Respect your buyers. Do not insult them. Sometimes some marketers take this approach. Find out about ABM that you don't know. How do you think I don't know about it? I run this, I do this for a living, right? So do not insult your buyer, treat them with respect, treat them as humans, and they will give you business.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Varun. Thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it. I think this was an amazing conversation.
Same.
Audience is going to learn a lot. If people wanted to reach out to you, of course, we'll link your LinkedIn profile and everything. What is the best way to reach you to seek your advice?
LinkedIn is definitely one of them. For the company, it is Cequence.ai. So you can find me on that as well. Varun.Kohli at Cequence.ai, LinkedIn, Gmail, Twitter, available everywhere. And happy to help.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you once again for being on the show.
Thanks a lot.